even though the medical field, the doctors do understand that and they do believe in it, believe it or not, they won't
They
admit.
have their experiences. The truth. They'll tell me stuff. Kids, special, my background is special needs for physical and mental health, and work with paranormal, with mental health. I was in a group and I heard my higher self going, okay, Danielle, there you go. You are in school and now you get to train with actual people who have trauma from their paranormal gifts. I was like thinking, special guests, we share the flame. Through every word we claim our name.
Hey sparklers, how are we doing? I am really excited today for this one, I have to admit. So you guys know what I'm like about things like spiritual psychosis, etc. So today I am going to get you some top tips about being careful and helping with stuff that you may feel like, are you quite okay? Is there actually something there? Or are you going insane? So that's what we're going to talk about today. If you don't know me, I am Empress Sparkle. I am a clairvoyant, Hellenic pagan. I'm the weird of the weird, is all I'll say. Anyway, guys, today I've got Danniel Worthen. Cumber with? Come,
lumber,
come, that's it.
lumber.
I couldn't get out my teeth, guys, my teeth. Danielle, would you mind introducing yourself better than what I did?
Absolutely. My name is Danielle Worthen Columber. People usually know me as Danniel Worthen. And my first name is definitely spelled like Daniel with two N's, which is unique.
I love that because we were having a chat about that, and it's sort of like we seem to love unique names. We love uniqueness. That's the important thing. And as we know, guys, everyone around here, especially you guys, sparklers, is unique. We are individual, and I think that's going to come a lot up in this podcast because one of the things that Danielle does is a. I'm going to have you explain that bit. I think is what you actually do, if you don't mind, Danielle.
Yes, I am here in the United States. I'm actually a trauma therapist. I'm a mental health therapist, but I call myself a holistic therapist because I bridge the gap of the holistic and paranormal, things that are unspoken. And with Willa Medella Wellness, I'm the founder and CEO. I wanted to bridge that gap with my husband, who's an indigenous medicine man from the Cherokee and Chippewa tribe, for that purpose, because not everybody can go the normal medical route because we keep getting misdiagnosed when we have gifts. And as a person who has gifts, I have that personal lens of that stigma.
Yes. And this is one of the things that I found frustrating. So I've spoke about a couple of my experiences that obviously I can't, sorry guys, but I can't discuss on here because of the confidentiality part of it. But one of the things I didn't actually tell you is at 18, I tried to get myself diagnosed with schizophrenia slash bipolar because I was obsessed I had it. And then they diagnosed me with ADD and just said I got hyperactive imagination. Um, and then again at 21, 22, I went again and I was like, look, this isn't I closed my eyes, I'm seeing faces, I'm seeing, it's like I've got a video in front of my face, like I'm talking to you now on the screen. Um, and they were like, no, it's hyperactive imagination. And that's what I've had all the time. So I bet you hear that a lot, don't you? People have been going to the doctors looking for help and don't know quite where to go. Um, where would you, how would they get in contact with you? I'm actually going to put that straight in, guys. I know I usually put that towards the end, but I'm going to ask you straight away, how would they get in contact with you? Because I think this is important for some of people that are going to watch this.
Well, you can find me on my website, Willow Medella Wellness, Medella spelled Medla, and info at willowmedellawellness.com. But you can contact me on my WhatsApp as well, which is 801-906-302. You can message me. Yes, we're in different time zones, but I accommodate all the time for uh, that barrier because mental health and support and being able to feel safe with what you're experiencing is important because there's not a whole lot of offered out there. You either go full right or full left, and there's nothing really in the middle. And I was tired of having no bridge or even a bridge guide to get us there.
See, I love this for so many reasons because I think as I've experienced it. So this is where I was. And I always tell people I'm not sure who it was at 25, 26 that come into my life. I don't know who she was. I don't know whether she was a spirit guide or a real person. I still don't know to this day if she was or not. Um, and I'm grateful for that because she taught me how to soul cleanse, which actually taught me to heal, taught me how to get over my trauma. Before then, from 16 years old, I spent my life in counselling, and all that did was re traumatize me over and over again. And especially because, as someone with a gift, we can pull up memories so much better than people without a gift. And we can pull up other people's memories as well sometimes, especially if they're coming in spiritually. Um, so for me, it's important to have someone that actually understands that. And even though the medical field, I'm actually going to let a secret out here, guys. Even though the medical field, the doctors do understand that and they do believe in it, believe it or not, they won't
They
admit.
have their experiences.
Yeah, they certainly have. They will not admit to you that they do believe in it and etc. because that is not on the protocol. It's not written down. They're not allowed to. Now I find that crazy that that's in the UK and the USA.
Oh, I'm I tease, I go, because I'm a mental person, I can say that it is insane. It literally is. And the problem is we have these, it's great that we have these shows, but they're dramatized and everything. But we have actually proof of people like police officers, paramedic people, that have actually become paranormal investigators because they've had their own lived experience. And that's the important part, is we are denying the lived experience. And part of that narrative that keeps coming is that we are trying to decolonize that narrative because it had to be this way within the structure, and that's it. I was actually, when I was a child, I had reading at a Halloween party, and they said, "You're going to be a doctor." And they said, "You're going to be a heart doctor." And I was like, "No, I wanted to be a pediatrician." The doctor was right. However, I didn't realize that the heart doctor that I was becoming was someone that was mind, body, and soul. And currently, I'm in my last 4 semesters for my doctorate program in social work. So I will be a doctor. And I have been bringing this information to the universities. I'm at Simmons University, which is connected to Harvard University, the oldest uh, university for social work in the United States. And
Love,
so we're like bridging these gaps, these stories, and we're bringing them to fruition because there, there's reasons.
yeah.
There's reasons for this.
I love this. And can I just say, Danielle, how proud I am of you?
Thank you.
Because for me, I've got chills literally going up and down my body, like literally the goosebumps are nuts. Because you can hear me getting a little bit emotional. Because being that child, being told, especially in a Christian household, Christianity, you are correct. When people talk about what they did to the Native Americans, I'm like, that's recent history. Let's go back to
Yeah.
what they did to the ancient Greeks. Let's go back to what they did to the ancient Romans. Let's go back to what
Mhm.
they did to the Celtics. Let's go back to what they did to the Druids. They tried to do it in East Asia as well. And I just sit there and I think, you are so right. Christianity tried to get rid of these beliefs, get rid of this belief that we can see past the veil. I don't know whether that's the right term in or what the term in is, because I am literally just so amazed that finally somewhere like Harvard, I know Cambridge University are finally listening in the last 20 years, they're finally listening. But hearing that somewhere like Harvard now is actually listening as well.
Well, and I can't say that Harvard for sure. My university just it was the first women's college connected to Harvard. But I know that Harvard has done studies in the past. I mean, there is literature, lit reviews. I mean, when the spiritualism movement came out, people started doing that bef during and after World War One. I mean, people have been studying this for years, but they hide it because there's not enough validity of proof within the skeptics to say, I don't feel comfortable with that. And I'm like, isn't the whole thing we do anyways, even though we can't see air, but we can see it when we breathe out when it's cold enough?
Exactly, exactly. This is what I say to people, and it does frustrate me. I'll hold my hands up, Danielle. I get really frustrated with it. And I really do because I watch some people and I speak to some skeptics and stuff, and I get it. And I actually side with skeptics sometimes,
Oh, yeah,
especially
you
when
have
you
to
go,
be.
yeah, and especially when you go through TikTok and I go fake, 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 and I'm scrolling through and I'm watching all these lives and I'm going, because it is easy, because as you say, it's not, we can't prove it. We can't prove we have the gift.
Mm.
It's a very, very hard thing to prove. But at the same time, you can't then say that is a bit like saying having a two exactly the same Gucci bags together and saying they're both fake,
Oh.
but one of them's real.
Well, here's a thought for you to consider. We all have different gifts. That's scientifically proven. Like we have savants and things like that, and they study their brain activity. They used to donate their brain to science and stuff like that. We have proof of those physiological events. I mean, their studies of does the a body have a soul and does raise they did the weight an old skull. That is proven. We have documentation of this. But the thing about a skeptic is we don't want to box them. A skeptic is a fair saying that I'm not sure, but I'm toeing the line. Because once you get the information, you're going to get cracked open. And once you know that information, you can't go back. And it just rewires the whole psyche. And just like you expressed that when you're being diagnosed, you get to the point where it's like, am I okay? Am I okay? And then there's that trauma of I'm not within the realm of the program matrix or my family, my culture, the norms that we have. And that in itself creates its own barriers. Because if you are conditioned to anxiety and depression anyways, and then also you have gifts. Well, we all have gifts. It doesn't mean it's uh extrasensory where you can hear audibly or smell or anything. You just might be highly sensitive to temperature. So we have people with neurodiverse brains. Those of us who I'm undiagnosed ADHD, but we are sensitive. Those with autism, they'll speak the truth. They'll tell me stuff. Kids, special my background is special needs for physical and mental health. And those individuals were more pure and authentic to what they were seeing and experiencing. Who cares about imagination? That was actually how I lived my life. I was like, I have a very active imagination. Everything is real to me. I think I can see twinkling fairy lights. That was normal for me because um, it made sense to me. So I wasn't traumatized by it. That was my explanation. But I couldn't explain walking down the street and somebody go, Danielle, I go, what? I turn around and there's nobody there. And this was consistently happening. Or I would see um there was a cartoon with here in the United States called Scooby-Doo. They were this big to me. And or I dream the old show where she'd shrink down into the ball that size. She'd sit on my desk talking to me. People thought I had an active imagination. I would actually ask her for answers for the test, and I'd sometimes get it right. But I didn't know. The school actually checked on me. They go, "What are you daydreaming about?" I'm like, "To be a teacher." Um, they couldn't understand. Well, I realized once I got exposed, I go, I can't talk to my friends anymore because now I'm getting called out. That was traumatic in its way because we don't live a
Normal.
healthy, normal life. Most people don't know what that is. So if we have also gifts and that's how we're coping, oh, shame us for even utilizing it.
See, that is one of the things because I remember I was explaining, funny enough, for the first time ever yesterday. I explained about the fact of a story that I was the first time I spoke about yesterday. You can see the trauma behind it. It's sort of like a bit of an emotional one. And it was I being brought up strict Christian, we were taught that if I can see stuff, it's the devil. That's what I was
Yeah.
taught by my vicar. If I can see stuff, it's the devil. And my one of my aunties at the time was really struggling with mental health, and I kept saying to her, "You've got the devil in your head." Because next to her, I could see this black figure. So I kept saying to her, "You've got the devil in your head." And I'm only 10 years old at the time. I'm only 10 years old. Um,
Mm.
Anyone that knew me knew I was a gobby cow. That's what they all called me. Now I'm using the gift of the gob. So for me, when I think about that now with what you've just said, and like with my daughter, who's severely autistic, we actually call her Mini Sheldon because she's like Sheldon.
I'm like, yeah, I love that one.
She's
cereal, added a quarter cup of 2% milk, sat on this end of this couch, turned on BBC America, and watched Doctor Who. And he's still sleeping. Every Saturday since we've lived in this apartment.
Oh, really? Are you familiar with the Drake equation?
The one that estimates the odds of making contact with extraterrestrials by calculating the product of an increasingly restrictive series of fractional values, such as those stars with planets, and those planets likely to develop life. N equals R times FP times NE times FL times FI times FC times L.
Yeah, that one.
worse social wise and she has meltdowns and that. But intelligence, oof, off the charts. Um, and I just sit there and she will come to me and she'll say, "Mum, the Muse wants me to write a book again." And I go write it. And she's like, "But why? But why?" They really do seem to connect with the other side. We really do, especially neurodivergent. And I don't want to call it neurodivergent. I want to see it call it people that don't get stuck in the system. We
I
see
actually call it neurospicy because I call it neurospicy because uh so many flavors. Some people like it, some people don't, some people can handle it, some people don't.
yeah. But I think, well, when I think about it, though, there's a few mental illnesses where I can sit there. Don't get me wrong, there is some which I'm like, okay,
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely.
mental illness. Um, Especially psychopaths, don't mean it rudely. Um, but there is somewhere I've even with what I've personally seen, as I was explaining to you with schizophrenia, what I've personally stood there and gone, I was like, yeah, I'll be locked up too if I told them the truth on what I'm seeing around this person. Um, it's scary because we straight away go to the medication, we straight away go to the don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with medication, guys. So if you're told to take medication, take it. There's nothing wrong.
There's a need for pharmaceutical when it's appropriate, and but when it's used for inappropriately, that's a whole different conversation.
Yes, it's how do I word it? Don't let it become the band-aid that festers. Is that the right way to word it?
That is a very good way to put it because uh how I had talked to my I explained to my clients ago, there's a place for pharmaceutical if it's appropriate. Like I have high blood pressure. I need to take something because genetic wise, I need that support. However, if it becomes a barrier, then that's another conversation. But if you do your coping skills, you do your mental health, your spiritual work, and if you're doing the thing to help the physical and they work together, then you're actually doing the better part of it. Because also eat like healthy eating, healthy gut health, and things like that. We know that that's part of the whole ecosystem. So sometimes we are lacking that. So it's a whole thing. Like you have people who have anemia or anemic, I should say. they can increase the iron, but what if they can't their body metabolize the iron, so they need a supplement to help bridge that gap. It's all the same thing. And so when I work with my clients, I'm looking at all the domains. Like I will actually ask you to find it your baseline. I call it the sweet spot. I don't want to know where your sweet spot is, but your body does. Even those who have schizophrenia have a baseline. And and when you and we also know that with paranormal, there's sometimes even a baseline when they show up and how they activate. It could be weather related, it could be pressure related, it could be when you're menstruating, pregnancy, all these things come into play. And I'll ask you to become more self-aware of the observation of you, because when you do the observation, yeah, you're seeing probably paranormal, but when you observe what's happening, you get more information, because when we're in it, we get those blinders on like a Clydesdale horse where we can't see left or right. So we need a chance to pull ourselves out our fight, flight, or freeze, which happens when we're activating. And that's what not the good spirits will call them, um, feed on, because that charges them. Now that's a theory. I can't prove it, but sometimes I've been proven right on that part. It's not, I mean, just like people, they have all different personalities, different experiences and expectations. So, but back to what I'm saying, if we can start observing and be able to ground and do our coping skills, we are pulled back in our executive function, which is our boss brain. I like calling it, that's how I always remember executive function is the boss brain, because we're in it and we can be aware.
I
And
love,
then,
and I've had a massive smile all the way through, because this is what I talk to about my girls. My girls are going to be watching this going, I have never seen Empress smile so much in a podcast, because this is what I'm telling you. This is what I'm saying. I'm loving this because a lot of my girls are on antidepressants, and they've been on antidepressants 10 to 20, 30, 40 years. And I go, it's a band-aid. Get off it. Start lowering it.
and that's the thing you get when you come with me is I will do the psychoeducation. I'm going to teach you the why, what's happening, best to my ability, where you can understand. I that's part of that bridging that gap, because what I found when I went into the holistic learning about energy work, psychic energy, I was working with people who had gifts everywhere. I was like, I had always asked the spirits on the other side and everything, like, I want to work with paranormal, with mental health. I was in a group and I heard my higher self going, okay, Danielle, there you go. You are in school and now you get to train with actual people who have trauma from their paranormal gifts. I was like thinking this whole time I was going to just go help ghosts cross over. No, they literally, be careful what you say. So they literally handed me everybody. And I was like, what the? But because I did that, I got to know who I was with my gifts and what I could do, what my limitations, what I could access, and also learn to know what I will take on and what I will not.
Yes.
Not just because I can do something does not mean I have to do it. And
See,
that's the same for everybody else too. Just because you can crack open that window or look through that veil does not mean you're ready to do it. Let's give you some tools to prepare you. With my gifts, I'll tell you, I'm old school. I was listening to John Edwards, Chip Coffey, Sylvia Brown. I was reading and listening to them. I still listen to Sylvia Brown stuff to this day. I was learning through their eyes what I had. When Chip Coffey came out with Psychic Kids, oh my gosh, I was like, thank you, because these kids were showing me what I had. I didn't know that was actually gifts. I didn't know that static ringing was actually paranormal. I thought I had 10 eye. I couldn't figure this out. I didn't know that why my pendulum would start swinging by accident. I was reading these books. So I educated myself before I even stepped my toe into it, because then I was more self-aware.
see, I love all of what you've just said there. I'm like literally loving it. By the way, guys, John Edwards. So this is something I've actually not told anyone. Um, when learning a lot of stuff, John Edwards was the only books I read. I that is one person, if I got to meet, I would literally be on the floor going, doing a Wayne's World. I'm not
Yeah,
free.
I think I'd be with you because when he had his show back in the day, he in one of his books he explained why he had to have the white walls, and I was like, oh, I had aha moments. I'm like, that's why I see things this way. And because I learned that, I applied it when I was in college because I would see things glowing. I would be able to tell when my professors are engaged or the students. It's like nothing's weirder than seeing a crowd and going, someone's teaching something and they're closed off. They're just going through the motions. It's really distracting. But when they have a spirit come in and start talking next to him, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is too much. I gotta pay attention because I have ADHD. I'm gonna squirrel completely in that squirrel moment. What's going on? So sometimes I would have to position myself against looking at a very multicolored brick wall just to down what I was seeing because I knew they were there. I knew all these things, but I'm like, hey guys, I'm still human. I gotta still navigate this environment.
Yeah, because this is one of the things that I think is hard, is our souls want to be out there, they want to be connected with each other. So basically, my main thing is soul connection, but I'm going into the paranormal, weirdly enough, as well. So this is why I was a bit like, oh, this is strange. Purely because I want to deal with attachments.
Yes.
So I don't want to do the mental health side. I've been an energy healer and all that. I hold my hands up. It's for me, the work that people need sometimes is too much, and I get a bit too over involved, if that makes sense. I'm one of them people. And then I realize actually this isn't good for me because I'm getting over involved. I'm messaging people at not at silly times. I don't want to use the term silly times, but at times when I'm not having any family time. I wasn't giving myself family time. I wasn't doing any of that. So for me, I want to move more into what people would call priest work, really. But I am not a priest, believe me.
You know, this is very good that you brought this in because I was actually looking at this question about attachments, okay?
Ooh.
Because there is a thing called attachment theory, where attachment styles, and we do that with relationships, but that we also do that with things and also with energies. And we have a relationship with that. And one of the things I look at is how are we showing up for the relationship with ourselves? And you just demonstrated a really good point is how is our attachment to helping and support people, but we forget how we fill in our cup. And when we have an attachment, let's say we have a spiritual attachment, people are immediately also dealing with that trauma and those programs, that narrative in our head, that looping. So one of the things I ask is it goes back to that observation, like, what are you doing? What are you observing with others that you recognize in yourself? And we take out the judgment. You go with observation. You can have a emotional or a cognitive response, but with an observation, you get more information so you can make a better choice and a shift in that. One of the things that I do find though is when people have an attachment or they're struggling with maybe even past life regression, things that kind of folded over into this world, well, this timeline, I should say, um, they want to cut the cord. Now, sometimes the cutting and binding, there is a purpose for certain events, but that's not that they use it like a blanketed thing, almost like medication. It what we're doing is medicine. Medicine's whatever is good for us that we feel that we need. However, you can actually dissolve cords or attachments by acknowledging that love, forgiveness for yourself, change that relationship, how you're responding to this situation. And what happens, the cord will actually let go and it will actually dissolve on its own. Because when you do a cord cutting, this is just awareness for you guys is you're causing another trauma because when you remove something, something else is going to come in. So if we can fill it with a positive vibration first, it's already filled. And so when it's removed, there's no needing to have worry about negative leakage coming in. That's how we keep why you do the cleansings and the rituals is because it's reaffirming your foundation. I would have people, I used to babysit and places would be haunted. I'm like, the spirit's not that bad, but you do have, like, I call them Loki loose, the ones that come in that aren't really part of them. I call them Loki loose, like, what's going on here? Because I'll be there and people are like, who's this chick? I mean, spirits will come and look for me. I'm a bright light and I can't help it. I
I
will
get a
suggest
feeling.
taking simple salt water and just spray it. It's like, make it part of your cleaning because we're doing these rituals anyways. Well, people look like, what rituals? I'm like, we clean our house, we do our laundry, we have a pattern. Those are our attachments, those are our things. So we are actually just putting a lens to the words that we know, to what we're doing or we're aware of. So by reframing that story or that narrative, actually just empowers us. It doesn't change the situation, but it actually helps us know that maybe that scary thing, we're going like this. Well, the problem is we're human. Our body doesn't know a good stimuli from a bad stimuli. It's kind of like a pop balloon. We can expect that balloon to pop and we'll still rattle. I have paranormal and I watch shows and I'll get the energy and I'm like, oh my God, okay. I scan and go, okay, oh, I haven't been doing familiar with that energy for a little bit. That's why I responded the way I do.
Yeah.
Because it's like a muscle. If you're not using it, it kind of gets a little tired or weak. It doesn't mean you're weak, but just like anything, it's like you're not going to hold a 25 dumbbell for 30 minutes when you've been training forever, but then you stopped and you can only lift a 5 pound for 30 minutes, but not the 10. Like you gotta know where you're at.
I will say several reasons why I love that. So any of the girls that know that have come to work with me, I have 3 stages, and you said all 3. So one of the ones that I always say is judgment darkens your soul faster.
Mhm.
So that is the main thing. We have to get rid of judgment. I can be a judgy cow, but there's judgment on safety, and then there's judgment as in a bad thing. We can all be judgy and we all can say judgy things, but we need to, as you were saying, make sure we cleanse that off and get rid of that and recognize where it comes from as well. I love what you were saying. So basically, the 3 stages that I have though is the first stage of healing is forgiving yourself, not others, like the Christians teach us. It's forgiving you. Because if you can't, even if you were like myself, a child which was essayed, even as a child, people sit there going, well, what have you got to forgive yourself for? And I says, the fact I didn't speak up sooner. And people sit there and they're amazed at that. They're like, the fact you didn't speak up sooner. And I'm like, yeah, it's,
I'm going to give a free resource right now for it if they cannot get access to it. I discovered it as a therapist by accident from therapistaid.com. It's a red flag and a green flag. What is forgiveness? And when I read it, I was like, oh my gosh, I wish I had this years ago. Because in Utah, we're raised LDS or Christian, whatever, and everyone's taught you got to forgive or forgiveness, and then you feel this guilt. And I'm like, if you learn to forgiveness, the guilt is not necessarily there. The guilt creates the shame, which creates the trauma, which continues the ball rolling. The saying, "Rolling stone collects no moss." Well, we are really a mess, not a moss. We're a mess. So this it's black and white in it, but it's a green flag and red flag. What it is, what it isn't. And I was like, what was this years ago? And I will use this with when addressing learning about attachments because you are not to blame for how you show up. We learn from childhood by our environment, what we observe, and we always strive for a healthy relationship. And I used to say, tell people, go, if you find that healthy relationship, a healthy attachment immediately, point them out to me because I want to talk to them. I have never seen it. Never. However, we all have parts of that. And when we become more aware of that, we're closer to achieving it. We're
I
human.
love this. I do. Oh, this I love because this is something that I always talk about. Oh, I'll tell you what, I could do a podcast with you just on its own, honestly, and I think we could go for years. Because I'm loving this because I've not met many which actually think about the same way as me when it comes to forgiveness. A lot of people say no, because then you can forgive them. And I'm like, no, you don't have to forgive them. You don't
And,
have
and
to.
actually also in this thing that I suggested, it actually talks about change how you can change relationship, keep it the way it is, or dissolve it. Also, forgiveness about yourself, to change a mind and change a heart. You can do it anytime. You can forgive someone that's no longer in life. And I love this part because it goes back to what you were saying with you being a child and speaking up, but going, you can forgive who you used to be. You can forgive the school bully because you were kids then, that you're a different person now. Or, and I always bring in the person who crossed over that's no longer here, that you were mad at or you weren't there. It's like you can actually forgive. I love when there's even the thing you can't force is like remember as moms, I'm going to start, I'm calling myself on this one. Siblings are fighting when you were a kid and you're like, mom goes, tell them you're sorry, but you're like, wait, I'm not to blame. So and so did it first, and now you're mad at your sibling and then your mom. You can't force a forgiveness, or somebody comes to you and go, "Can you forgive me?" All they're doing is outsourcing because they can't forgive themselves. If they feel that you've forgiven them, that gives them a permission slip to go, they accepted it or forgiven me or condone it or forgot it. No, that's not what it is. The forgiveness is you can forgive in your heart without telling anybody. It's your energy. This is
Yeah,
all about your energy.
exactly that. Because, when I had a thing with my 18-year-old the other day, actually, funny enough. And she says, Mum, you were always making me say sorry, blah, blah, blah. It was always my fault, blah, blah, blah. And I looked at her and I said, Jazz, I says, what's the one thing you do now to your sisters? And she goes, oh, I love to aggravate them. She's an aggravator. And I went, right. I says, I don't mean this rudely, baby girl. I says, the one thing, what did Mum used to do before she actually told anyone else off in the house? And this is where I'm blessed because I learned this when my kids were young. So I am quite blessed. So when I talk to people about this, I know how blessed I am to have learned this when they were young, because a lot of us have to go through this mistake and deal with it when they're adults. And she went, well, you used to speak to us all. I says, exactly. I says, I used to speak to you all individually, didn't I? I says, even if you're friends, you're arguing with your friends. I says, I never spoke to parents. I went straight to the child, which I'd used to get told off by the parents, but I didn't care. Um, she went, yeah. I says, and I used to make the one which I personally felt had the energy that didn't show remorse, say sorry. And she went, is that how you worked it out? And I went, yeah. She went,
Mhm.
how does that make sense? I said, because they were the issue during that time. I says, and you like to aggravate. That's in your nature. That's who you are. You just need to learn when it's good and when it's not. That is the problem with you. And she just looked at me and smiled and went, I'll see you later. And walked out the room. So she literally come in to say that just to aggravate me. But it didn't work. So she was a bit like, see you later.
Mhm.
But I think that is the thing. My girls know their natures and they know their nurtures. But to me, it's like I said to her, when she says, well, why am I like that? She has said it a couple of times. And I says, well, you need to think a few thousand years ago, you would have been bait because you would have gone, aggravated the animal while the hunters grabbed it. And she went, what? I went, you would have been the bait. And she looked at me and went, so that's what
Mhm.
it is in my nature. And I'm like, sorry, baby girl, yeah. And I I just love what you said, and I'm looking at the time at the same time, and I'm like, I want to
Mhm.
carry on.
To tie this into attachments and souls and everything, it's funny how when we look at these little pieces, but how they all intersect. So when we go, oh, that's why. The moment we have an acknowledgement of a possible why, like a causality, that psychoeducation, those aha moments. I love those aha moments. Those paradigm shifts start to happen. It automatically releases the attachment. It starts shifting automatically. You don't have to do anything because there's already shift in the mind and the heart. And then if you have a spiritual attachment, maybe in a positive attachment to try to protect you and guide you, or a negative one to feed off of you, they're seeing that shift and they're seeing that their purpose also shifts. So they either go, they gotcha, they step away. Or the negative, they're like, I got to do something else to kind of aggravate is a good one. Agitate. Let me use the word agitate. Agitate to pull you back into the previous pattern. And that's why we have to do those the rituals, the practices, is because we are creatures of habit.
Yeah.
We're human. We will overcomplicate things because it makes sense. If it's easy, we'll make it hard. We will stay in the unfamiliar and unhealthy because it's safer to be familiar than the unknown. And that's why it's teaching.
I love this. So I will also explain about attachments, guys, a little bit on the way your brains have mostly gone with it, knowing my job. This isn't just the spiritual attachments, this is also physical things. So I just want to explain that a little bit, just in case. So they know that I deal with what they call possessions as well.
Yeah.
I don't like using that term because 9 times out of 10 it actually turns out to be their own bloody own spirit next to them because they've conjured up such a dark entity.
Familiar with those references myself.
Yeah, so it's like, but people, so every now and again it's an actual entity and I have to deal with it,
Oh,
but sometimes it's just them. But we are actually talking about things as well, and I love this because this is actually where things like codependence come from as well.
yes. And it's very interesting because people have been more able to talk about how our words are spells. Well, our voice is a vibration. We're emanating vibration. We can show it in the color spectrum with like light and everything. This is actual proof science we can do. But when we say like the word, I'm going to use the word possession. Well, depending on what you're thinking, possession can be the physical thing of owning, like tangible, like money or material, possession, or the spiritual part where the negative, it's holding, it's consuming.
Oh,
And so,
wow.
and so when we use the words and we reframe it, it changes the power and the perception and the thickness of what we're holding on with that density.
I actually may steal that because one of the hardest
You're
things.
welcome to.
So I will explain. So basically one of the hardest things when I'm going to an attachment case, and I know this sounds really weird, and I know it does. Sam, who I'm good friends with, if I have space clearing, I'll send her because she's better at that than me, whereas I'm better at people than her. And one of the hardest things actually when we're going to an attachment case and I'm having to get rid of them and I'm having to like get the attachment out the building so then I can deal with it or attach it to a crystal and stuff like that. People always say to me, but why do you attach it to a crystal? And I go, do you know how hard it is to actually get the person unconsumed by, and I'm going to use that term, usually I say how hard it is to get them emotionally unattached to this attachment. Like,
Mm-hmm.
even though, and I know it sounds bad, they recognize that this attachment's making them depressed. They recognize that it's making them feel insane because they're seeing things out the corners of their eyes and they're like, did that just actually move? They know all this. And they're like, they know that it's the negative thoughts aren't their own and stuff like that. They know all this. And then they're like, they sit there and they speak to me and they're like, but what do I do? And I'm like, well, we've got to get rid of it. But you have to work with me. I says, I can do so much. I says, but I can take this home, cleanse it off, send it to the afterlife. I says, but if you don't keep your energy up into a good place, you're soon going to have another one come along, especially with how dark the world's
Yeah.
getting.
And it's like a fingerprint. It's like a dirty print. It leaves a mark. And I hate to say that because it's true. It's like our fingerprint, like our oils on our hands. You touch something, you can clean it off. But you put paper powder on it, it looks like a spiritual handprint. It is our handprint. It's our energy print. And that's why our aura can show when we've had an injury or an illness. It is written in our record. Um, hi, the higher records, I'm not going to even use the term right now because my dyslexia will and my ADHD will pull me there. It we have those recordings in us.
Yes.
That's why we can be to a place and this goes to trauma too. This is a really good reference to how we respond to trauma is we can be years later, it could be a smell, a song, a temperature, a time of season, and you're feeling off and not knowing why. And I'll ask somebody, what happened during this time to this? And they'll go back like 5 years or a year ago. And they're like, oh, I'm like, yeah, because it's not on your radar because life still happens, but our body keeps the score. In fact, there's a book called Body Keeps the Score that actually researched on PTSD. And it's wonderful because the book, it's a dense book, but if you can read the first 4 chapters, it's amazing. You even have brain scans in black and white showing how we respond. And when we have the trauma, our brain and our body pop and they stop communicating. So let's say you had like a shock, you'll start running when your brain goes, I'm safe. It was something else, kind of like the pop balloon kind of situation. And your body's like, I don't care. I'm going to get as far away as I can till I feel safe and you can clean up the mess. That's why we have to go back to grounding. I created coping skills. I call them mask or hidden coping skills, masquerade coping skills. It uses the mudras, just the pressure points and the breathing because our body is a natural regulator. If it just needs a help, it has an on switch, but an off switch. And then the counting because we can't speak and think at the same time. We need a distraction. We think we're great multitaskers, but we suck at it. I use it to that benefit. It works quicker than 20 seconds.
Yeah.
It takes the edge off, and that brings us out of our fight, flight, or freeze mode and helps us pull us back in our executive function brain, like I said, the boss brain. And then we start looking around going, more clarity, more eyes, our eyes relax. And also I'm like, that wasn't what I expected because that reference of that reframed trauma that came into your body, like, what's happening? That shock. And I wasn't really there. We're there. And with the paranormal, and then you saying, like, if you don't keep your energy up, it's the same thing. If we don't keep doing something else, it's going to have that reference pull in. And that's why if you can reframe it and have a positive reference, it's going to more likely want to go to the positive. Even though, granted, our history and our experiences make us who we are, but you don't have to be defined by it. I've been attacked by spirits before. I remember the first one I did when I was 15. I remember when it happened. It scared the bejesus out of me. What? And I was just tapping into my gifts, and I wasn't even my gifts. I got attacked and was almost silenced. But thankfully, when I was 12, I learned how to get rid of it. And I had to use my powers. Whatever. I prayed. I don't know what I did, but I remember the events and it worked. But I know what I also saw.
See, I
But it
think
doesn't define me.
this is one of the biggest problems I find, and please do not take this to offense. You said the right word at the end. Is define me. A lot of people, like, I've had guests on here where I've no longer got the videos up because their trauma defines them. And when people sit there and they're quite shocked, I've got a couple of girls. I'm going to be honest here. I had a girl the other day message me and she's talking about some of the issues she's got. And she went, you don't even know what I'm going through. You don't understand. You can't have been there because they see me now. And I went,
Right.
if you saw me 12 years ago with grey eyes, I says literally the whites of my eyes were grey. And this is why I love what you're saying, because that was the colour of my soul. It was dirty grey, nearly black. I was in an awful place. I've witnessed awful stuff happen, and I've had awful stuff happen to me. And I've gone, I know exactly where you are, sweetheart. I've been there. The difference is it doesn't define me. And I think that actually helps with these attachments, even spiritual, as well as the things here, and as well as the triggers that attach to our souls. Because since I've been able to let go of them attachments, there was one last attachment which I managed to get rid of last year. But since I've got rid of them, one of the things that's managed to happen is one of my daughters have managed to move out, and I'm okay with it. I'm not triggered by it at all. But yeah, if that happened 2 years ago, when I thought I was healed, before I got rid of this last attachment that I didn't even realize was there, I wouldn't have been able to cope. I would have literally been on the phone to her 24/7 saying, where are you? What are you doing? How are you doing? And I think I love what you've said. Like, I just love it because I think a lot of people don't understand this with mental health, and they don't understand it with mental health. And even some practitioners do understand it, they just can't admit it. Do you know what I mean? Even the father of psychiatry, Freud, even he spoke the way we're speaking now, that it depends
Yes.
about your spiritual beliefs around you. Sorry, lovely, I heard you say yes.
Yes, I agree with you. You're right because the Freud. So I'm going to use Carl Jung. He's a Freudian. He was the first theorist that I found when I was during early years of schooling that actually talked about cell memory and the dream state and stuff. And one of my gifts was precog. I would dream. I do most of my work in my sleep. I mean, I have conversations, I'll see things, all these things. And we do that anyways in that dream state. And I could actually get themes. In fact, Sylvia Brown's Dream Dictionary was my first book. And the first part that she said in it was take what you want and leave the rest. And I had to go like this, like, thank you. And I learned that with not divining ourselves is giving ourselves that permission slip. We need permission to do something. It's like little children, like you can't do that without being told it's okay. That's okay. That's conditioning. We are taught that for safety, but we continue to carry it over and it becomes a barrier. So I say, I'll write you an imaginary permission slip, put in your back pocket, use it whenever you want. And people laugh because all of a sudden this chain that they were carrying on their back or this heavy backpack, they just get to unload as they want. But with the permission slip and that shame and that defining, we don't know what defining is. We are ever an evolution. And you were talking about your daughter 2 years ago. Well, I also have to say, you also have a permission to accept that you probably were not ready for that or you didn't have access to those tools. Because, like I said, once you're cracked open, you can't go back because you can't unlearn it. And that's where we get triggered. That's where we get traumatized. And I want to point out the word trigger, I love it because people misuse it. I'm like, trigger is actually saying that you're having a behavior emotional response. And people say they're having a behavior. I'm like, it's like the words. We put a negative to it, like everything's a behavior. Me blinking, me breathing, me feeling the temperature, and cognitively we're processing. We're doing that consistently. And why are we giving it labels? So that's where it is. We give this a label, then we shame it. We give it a title. Give it its own life. And just like you said, someone attaches to them creating that energy outside themselves, an allegory or something. We have control of those things that we're not aware of. We just haven't been given the access to know how to utilize it.
See, this is one of the things, and you brought up Carl Jung, which I love Carl Jung, and I'm sorry, young witches, it's not called shadow work. Shadow work was where we hid in the shadows. That was shadow
Mhm.
work. It was called, and I believe he actually used this term, aware of the darkness within. And that is
Mhm.
basically accepting yourself. He actually realized we weren't aware, you know, we weren't accepting. So I love what you've said there, bringing up Carl Jung. Amazing, amazing person. Sorry, I literally, I sit here and Carl Jung for me, when he said, you know, I know the witches use the term being aware of shadow work now.
Mhm.
He never actually used that term at all. So I just want to say that, guys, I feel like that's something I actually do
I
really.
wonder if he didn't know the term. I don't. Here's a thought to consider. A TTC, thought to consider. Maybe he didn't have the language to speak it, but he had the awareness on how to communicate it, and he was taking it from the lens he is, and that goes back to bridging that gap. The medical model, I was like going there, I'm doing this, and I understand from this physical essence from my lens, and then when I came into the realm of magic and cinematography and cognitive and audio, psychic work and spirit, I'm like going, wait, wait a second. Everyone, we all speak different languages in different countries. Why is it we're doing the same thing vibrationally in these conversations? So how can we link that? How can we bridge that gap so when the individual comes in to see me, it's individualized. I find where they're at. I meet them at that gate and I go, okay, what do you already know? You don't have to teach me, but if I have a question, I'll ask. And then we walk together in that journey of your healing and your awareness and your strengthening. And and I've had clients, I'll be honest, that actually grew in their gifts because once they were able to identify the trauma that they saw based on that narrative and saw what this was, they were seeing a whole picture of themselves and they became accepted and they became more powerful and more aware of who they are. And they were able to do more internal work, more psyche work, and they became a stronger persona of what they never thought could be of themselves.
I again completely agree. So there's a reason, Danielle, I have to say that I actually bring up about the word terms is because even here to United States, even North England to South England, the language is very different. So I usually like that pointed out, especially on the psychological side of it as well, because I've always called it the awareness of the darkness within. It's what I've always called it. And then also, I hold my hands up. We've also shadow work for me when I was growing up was because a lot of witches had to work in the shadows. We couldn't be seen.
Yeah.
So a lot of it was shadow work. Even though people are like, yeah, but you had movies like The Craft, you had Buffy the Vampire. Yeah, it weren't accepted. We may have had all that. And most parents didn't approve of it watching that, believe it or not. Even in the 90s and the early 2000s, they didn't approve of it. And I think this is one of the things that people don't realize is the terminology. One, it does change. So terminology does change. Our understanding of that terminology does change as
Yeah.
well. So there may be stuff, guys, as you're watching this, that you may think, actually, I don't quite understand that. Do comment down below because I think Danielle's another one that I'm going to say I'm going to have on again because Shawnee is absolutely amazing at getting guests. I will admit that. Um, she's been picking them amazing just recently since her gifts open up so well. She's been picking them amazing. So we've gone on for another 20 minutes since I said, oh, I've realised the time. My lovely, would you mind giving us your statement before we finish?
Healing isn't just a term, it's an experience. And healing is actually enriching what you want for yourself. So please give yourself the permission slip to do so.
I love that. I love that. Do you know what? It's so I'm loving the fact Shawnee's found me lots of guests that I agree with just recently, and I'm loving it. So guys, don't forget to go and check out Danielle's stuff all down below. So all her links will be down below, guys. Don't forget to go and check her out because I think Danielle's going to be someone really important for you guys to follow, especially ones which are on the healing journey. And as I said, you need to find the right healer for you. And I can literally name a couple of you that would need Danniel more than just a Reiki master or an energy master, etc. I can name a couple of you, to be honest. Anyway, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this. Don't forget to comment down below. Danniel, thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been so much a pleasure of mine.
You're more than welcome. And don't forget, guys, keep sparkling.